how's everyone doing? This is going to be a great session. So,
Look to it.
Martin has already been introduced, but I also just want to say VP of Customer Analytics at Talbots. That's a big job. And I know the title of this session is Why Many AI Initiatives Fail. But we're not going to talk about that, because what we're going to talk about is how Martin has had such a successful career and made a lot of AI initiatives very successful. And I think that's what everyone wants to know about before they go eat lunch. So your career, you started at Talbots, and then you actually worked across a vet group, went to Wayfair, now back to Talbots. And what's different about this chapter? Let's set the stage.
Yeah, great question. Thank you for having me, everyone. The first chapter at Talbots, it was really a single brand at that point in time. And for me, it was really learning the craft. It was honing the analytics intuition in a retail setting, understanding promotions, understanding incrementality. The time away really stress tested that intuition, right? At a veterinary management group, you're dealing with 15 plus different source systems of data. Then at Wayfair, it was really about understanding how analytics can stand as a first-class citizen in every single conversation. Coming back, though, to Knitwell Group and to Talbots was really around an opportunity to have a full brand portfolio. And ultimately, I had a genuine belief that I could leverage that intuition and the scale of it to really solve into a true set of value-driving problems.
Yeah, that's great. Now, before we go back to Talbots, one thing struck me when we were in our prep call, among many things, but at Wayfair, you said you've worked on some key projects that changed the way you viewed AI and your perspective on it, and I thought that would be a good thing for you to share with the audience.
Yeah, thank you. It was really the classic analytics team problem. Demand far outstripping supply on first, second, third order questions, and ultimately decided to solve into it in partnership with a director of engineering, and we built a 1,400 line Python app that powered an LLM-powered bot to translate questions into responses in plain English, provide the underlying SQL, as well as develop visualizations that would be relevant for their needs.
People could go home and eat dinner.
Right, exactly. I mean, the proof point of this one beyond, and I think that's a really key theme in terms of proving beyond a pilot, proving beyond your local sandbox into production, was really when we started getting the 3 a.m. pings from the CEO as he was flying from suppliers across the South China Sea. And that use, he wasn't using it because we had nudged him that far towards it. We'd nudged gently. He was using it because he could get to insights he needed in that moment to prep for the next conversation, to actually address something that was being brought up in the room. And so what we found, whether it was through his interactions or through the kind of wildfire adoption, was that it was changing the way of working across the organization when you started to inject data-backed intelligence and insights into every room.
Yeah. What do you feel like that project helped you with as far as cutting through the noise? Because I think a lot of the people here today, I mean, everyone's chartered with AI initiatives, myself included. And I think it's figuring out where to focus and also really making things real within your organization so it doesn't just sound like kind of a pie in the sky type of project. What were your kind of learnings from this one?
Yeah, I mean, the biggest learning is really one that I actually heard resonate quite a lot with the previous panel, which is it's only your AI solution or capability, your stack, is only as good as the data feeding into it. And so investing in and ensuring that that foundation is in place, or being willing as you're developing that stack to root right back to the source to understand is there an inaccuracy, is there an anomaly. Ultimately, if you can't answer the question that you can trace back an insight from an AI insights-based solution back to a trusted source and understand how and where that was pulled together, you're kind of dancing more in the world of theatrics as opposed to real AI impact.
And you feel like your organization, they were clear with that, they understood that.
Completely.
Yeah, that's great. So you bring this skill set back to Talbots, to the Knitwell Group, and you inherit a series of brands. And be honest with everyone in the room, what was the state of that situation? Because that's a big kind of thing to take on and step back into, and those jobs are never easy.
Yeah, it's to be candid, it was a world away from the sort of technical labs at Wayfair, but ultimately the talent's there, and in so many business settings, the required talent for the sort of evolved value driving team is already in place, but the underlying data, as many of us feel, fragmented, siloed, difficult to connect, different definitions on a reported net sales or an adjusted EBITDA. And ultimately, it created a real sort of opportunity cost in terms of how that then translated into how folks are spending time. So a lot of opportunity to solve in, but again, feeling incredibly fixable.
Yeah, so you felt that the people and the skill, like the talent was there. It was just like the common problem of data being in silos and that. And so leaning in kind of on the people side of things, what was something like we typically see sometimes very talented people and they're doing a job like putting data into spreadsheets and spending a lot of their day doing that, which I'm sure people in this room have done. I've done. It's not the most fun. What do you feel like is the true kind of cost of that? It's sometimes I think people don't think about this aspect with AI.
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, beyond copying and pasting data into reports or manually spinning up the latest dashboard in whatever platform you're using to try and answer the latest ad hoc question, it's the time that is being taken to do that. It's the opportunity cost of the expert's time to be asking a better question, to be prompting the user to come back to ask 17 first or second order questions such that they can then evolve and iterate towards a really powerful hypothesis that we can then set up a loop, set up some measurement and try and test into.
Yeah, so you feel that in many cases, a lot of the AI initiatives you've built have freed up talented people to be talented and really showcase their skills and more of the kind of boring work they can leave on the shelf.
Fundamentally, I mean, even in the last 6 months since rejoining, have seen our digital analytics team move from their focus being tag management, test setup, disaster checks on test, all run very manually, to actually now being in the room with the product managers, guiding what the feature iteration is going to look like, guiding where the customer journey needs to go.
Really...
And that it has the added benefit of you retain the talent.
Exactly.
You can't expect incredibly analytical or sort of strategic talent to hang around when the ask of the job is to sort of move data back and forth.
Yeah, I agree. So it really kind of gave them more to look forward to. And so it wasn't that their jobs are going away, they can focus on what they like, which is, I think, a really positive point. So now you're at Talbots, you're working across 8 different brands, I guess, in the Knitwell group. And for a lot of people, that seems like a pretty daunting task. And for you, did you approach kind of one of the brands, like say Talbots, do a kind of initiative and then test it out and then roll it out? Or did you pick one thing that you did across all 8 brands? Like, what was the strategy with something like that?
Yeah, it's a great question, and something that we continue to learn, and having worked across sort of several different groups in different industries, it's not always something that you get right away. I would say that we try and do both, and we try and do it fairly clear-eyed in terms of isolate a brand where the conditions are right, where the data is in a shape that can enable a minimum viable product or a sort of minimum viable stack, and then build from there, scale in the additional brands as and where it makes sense, and identify along the way the nuance that each one can bring to the table and how that can add value or flexibility or pressure test the architecture of the stack that you're building.
Yeah. Did you find that the leaders of the different groups were all equally the same? Or did you have a favorite?
I ultimately don't take favorites in group management settings, but you find that there are learners. You find that there are individuals who are bringing up how they are leveraging some of this technology in their everyday life. You find individuals who are quoting some of the sort of great speakers that we've had earlier today in terms of how they're thinking about the vision that they're trying to create for their organization. And those are individuals who are setting up feedback loops, who are thinking beyond just being able to sort of measure, but how do we create a closed loop system that will continue to iterate and drive and create value. So hold on to those guys.
Yeah, the people matter a lot.
Right.
So you talked a little bit about data foundation, and you talked about feedback loops. And I think for a data foundation, was there something that you uncovered that made that a more successful process or less successful? Like, meaning for the audience, is there something that they should be thinking about there?
Yeah, I mean, it came up in the prior discussion, the first layer really being that trust in the data, and whether you think about starting off with picking the most trustworthy data source, maybe it's the one feeding your executive reporting or your ERP or enterprise data warehouse today, but being able to answer where did that number come from really quickly becomes the sort of game breaker in whether a solution that you're building can continue to grow and compound in value, or whether you erode trust pretty quickly. The second aspect would really be about connecting the pipes, right? It's in the topic of this speech, bad pipes. Ultimately, partnering with groups like Tealium, but also thinking about pipes and feedback loops as a key factor in your architecture, in your capability stack that you're looking to go after is paramount. We heard a lot of opportunities and use cases earlier around real time and things at the edge. And so if you aren't thinking about how to integrate that data and put more of your energy, influence, effort, and investment in those places, you're likely ending up building a beautiful penthouse that will show pretty big cracks by the time the second sort of question hits it.
Yeah, the feedback loop piece is really, really important because your kind of key point is like nothing is really static. It's not a set it and forget it type of situation. You have to keep looking at it and getting those inputs back.
Right.
Once you have your foundation in place and you have your team up and running, what do you feel like that unlocks? What do you feel like you look for with a team, and like for everyone out here that's thinking about this, is there, ideal people that you try to put in place or hire?
Yeah, it's a great question. To be candid, the team remains small, or in some settings gets a bit smaller. We have headcount taking on a much larger impact. We have it incredibly intentionally deployed, focused, such that we are leveraging AI and automation, whether through Snowflake Cortex, whether through Tealium capabilities, or even our open source and homegrown, right, to really ensure that whether it's data wrangling, whether we're thinking about report production, or the latest experimentation that we want to enable measurement around, that we're doing so in a way that is keeping the human as the critical evaluating operator in the loop as we think about it. And so you're looking for individuals who are gainfully willing and naturally excited to learn. You're looking for individuals who will want to establish a hypothesis and be able to validate that through data and through an ability to sort of stack and sequence a learning agenda, and not just sort of one test as sort of a one-off. And then ultimately you're looking for individuals who will continue to be able to evolve, right? The tech that I've even had the fortune of leveraging to date has fundamentally evolved over the sort of handful of years that I've been playing with it, and even has done in the last couple of months with some of the latest frontier developments. And so that ability to not just learn, but then figure out how do I adapt and evolve in my way of working, in my team's sort of way of working, and it lands with measurable outcomes in terms of being able to reinvest that time back into higher order efforts that ultimately lead to stronger hypotheses and bigger gains to the bottom line. Right,
so knowing Python's just not enough. You have to be somebody that's curious and continue to learn and think through systems.
Yeah, I'd almost be encouraged. I recently had an interview with a young man who owned to me that he had trained himself on Python, leveraging a series of agentic partners and tutors over the sort of 48 hours leading up to the interview. And again, to be able to take on the next tool or the next language or protocol, and quickly bring up to speed in terms of what does this enable us to do today? What new opportunities would this create in our stack or in our ability to sort of do more, or extend or grow our footprint with our customer, our ability to sort of service our supply chain or any other aspect. So it's getting exciting on that side.
Yeah, I'd add one other thing in find that I've seen speaking to a lot of different customers are people that are good communicators. Because as a lot of companies adopt AI, and they sometimes can be in different groups, you want people that can communicate well across teams and make sure that everyone's aligned with the tech involved and sort of the strategies and making sure that people are working together and not kind of independently. It's really important.
I would double down on that one, actually. When you think about the complexity behind some of this technology, and our friend from OpenAI mentioned it earlier, right? Their first couple of pitches went a bit south, and maybe we're a little bit based on product, but also maybe a little bit based on how difficult it is to explain the sort of data science behind, or the neuroscience behind a transformer function. And they lost everyone before they were able to wow them with what GPT could do. Your ability to translate to other teams, both in terms of leveraging and getting adoption on capabilities that you're building, whether it's as a data group, an analytics group, or even just as a tech-minded business group.
Right.
But then also your ability to partner with other groups and say, well, hey, you've built this agent, we've built this one. What if we could create an agentic framework that enables both of these agents to operate in a way that we're not just speaking to them and then having to double down on the conversation in an analog way. So
I agree with that. Before we wrap, before people go get their delicious lunch, if you were to give people kind of like one ending thought or point of view on, a lot of people need to get AI initiatives off the ground started right away. And you can't just say, oh, go build a data layer. Like, go just be amazing in a day. What's something that you feel is tangible and practical that people could think about and do, when they get back to their offices?
Yeah.
Or their home offices.
It's not quite go back and rebuild the data layer, but you do need to resist the temptation to skip over the foundation. And that can just be a foundation check or a foundation scoping exercise to figure out, where is there a trustworthy, clean data source that folks are leveraging today in a way that is just creating additional work that, as we all know about this emergence of this technology, maybe they shouldn't be doing, and we can reallocate that expertise. And so whether it's, again, thinking about your executive reporting data sets, whether it's a reporting data set that's going to a sales group or a merchandising group or a customer service group, and how and where you can take that trusted data set, a known set of semantics or context or business understanding around that, and piece the two together in a sort of lightweight application that you can really start to get adopted. And that's the key in moving, again, from the sort of local host of your laptop out into your enterprise GitHub repo and production.
That sounds good. Okay, wildcard question. You don't know about this one.
All right.
What is something you would tell folks that was maybe something you drove that you would not do again? What was maybe something that you attempted that didn't work so people could avoid that mistake?
Yeah, great question. When we think about building a really elegant AI capability on top of trusted data, that works really well in the first movie. But now you get to the sequel of the movie series, and you've got all of these other really engaged business partners reaching out saying, hey, what about finance? Tap into this data set. Let's start to pull in more of this. And so a learning for me along the journey was, do not jump into those too quickly, and remember to sort of go back to your basics, reevaluate, well, what is the foundation of that financial data? Does it have multiple sources of truth relative to the data that we've already exposed to this capability or this intelligence stack? And do we need to invest in, again, lightweight, but intentional discovery to make sure that we're not sort of going out over our skis? Because again, it goes back to trust. The moment the CFO saw a number that did not quite look like where Q2 2024 EBITDA should have been at, he was questioning the efficacy of the solution. So.
Yeah, that makes sense. My power tip is talk to your legal team. Do that
Right.
first. Okay, I think that's it. And thank you so much, Martin. This was a great discussion. Yeah.
Thank you, guys. Appreciate it.